Coca-Cola and Pepsi are very similar businesses in terms of industry, ideal consumers, and flagship products. Both Coca-Cola and PepsiCo are global leaders in the beverage industry, offering consumers hundreds of beverage brands. In addition, both companies offer ancillary products, such as consumer packaged goods. On the surface, Coca-Cola and PepsiCo have similar business models. However, there are also key differences between how the two businesses operate. Coca-Cola and PepsiCo are fierce competitors that have slightly different approaches to how they attempt to capture market share. Before we go to this video, welcome to my YouTube channel, where we will teach you the most business story and ideas, tips, and tricks. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like it, and press the notification bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. The Coca-Cola Company has been offered the chance to buy Pepsi's business multiple times, including for only $50,000 in 1933, but Coke turned them down. Instead, Polk tried to sue Pepsi for using the word cola in their ads, claiming that they were trying to rip off Coca-Cola products. This backfired when Pepsi countersued that Coke was using anti-competitive tactics to build a monopoly. The courts agreed and ruled that cola was a generic term anyone could use. However, since Coke missed their chance to buy Pepsi, they ended up getting locked in an ongoing marketing battle with them. At one point, Coke and Pepsi both started cutting their prices and offering discounts to try and compete with each other. But they soon realized this was hurting both of them. Whether they made a secret deal behind closed doors or not is unknown, but soon they both reverted back to their normal pricing and tried to compete on advertising instead. But eventually, Pepsi had the simple but genius idea to actually compete on taste. In 1975, Pepsi launched a Pepsi Challenge, where they gave people two white cups, one containing Pepsi, one containing Coca-Cola. People didn't know which was which and were encouraged to taste both to see which they preferred. The test results showed that Pepsi was preferred by slightly more people, and so Pepsi started using this stat in all of their advertising, and all across America more people pick Pepsi. But when they conducted their own tests, they found that Pepsi did indeed score slightly higher in a blind taste tests. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola was slowly but steadily losing market share. They tried everything, huge marketing campaigns and price promotions, but every year, Coke's market share slightly declined and Pepsi slightly increased. It started to seem that perhaps the Pepsi challenge was right. The problem was that more people simply preferred the taste of Pepsi, and thus, Coca-Cola began an incredibly secret mission. They were going to change Coke's formula. After rigorous testing and trials, they discovered a new cola formula that consistently performed better than both original Coke and Pepsi. Over and over, they repeated the blind taste test, and the data was clear. The new formula was more popular. And so just short of Coca-Cola's 100-year anniversary, he did the unthinkable. They changed the Coca-Cola formula and replaced it with new Coke, and immediately the chaos began. Every single day, thousands of phone calls and letters arrived at Coke's offices. They were a mixture of distraught people begging to the old version of Coke back, and people who were downright furious could have the nerve to take away the original formula. Before we go any further, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Coke expected the uproar would soon die down, especially when people actually tried the new formula. But the outrage simply intensified. The media was equally full of outrage reports, and at the Coke phone lines are constantly jammed with complaints. For months, when new Coke advertisements were shown on giant screens in stadiums, people loudly booed. It became popular to hate new Coke. Of course, many of the people complaining hadn't even tried the new formula. As one Coke employee put up, "We could have introduced the elixir of the gods, and it wouldn't have made any difference." It was soon very clear that taste hadn't been the issue. It didn't matter if new Coke technically tasted better in blind taste tests. Coke's success had never been about taste in the first place. Thanks to its incredible marketing, the world viewed Coca-Cola as an old friend, a piece of everyday life. For around 100 years, Coke had been present, never changing. No matter what was going on in the world, it was an icon, and changing something that meant so much to people was considered a betrayal. One angry letter commented that changing Coke is like making McGrath purple. Another claimed, "You've taken away my childhood." Even months later, the protests were not dying down, and it soon became clear a company had to revert back to the old formula. They had made a gigantic mistake. There were very few instances in history of such strong backlash against the company's decision. And yet, despite that, the new Coke disaster ended up being one of Coke's greatest marketing triumphs. You see, when Coke caved in and brought back the original formula under the name Classic Coke, suddenly all of the anger turned to euphoria and praise. Suddenly, all the letters and phone calls arriving at the company were filled with adoring fans thanking the company and commenting how much it meant to them when Coke marketers said, "You would have thought we'd invented a cure for cancer." Immediately after reintroducing the old flavor, Coke sales dramatically increased. Business Week named the whole thing the marketing blunder of the decade, but some skeptical analysts felt the company had staged the entire thing for publicity and to remind customers how much Coke means to them. If the whole stunt really was planned, it will be one of the greatest marketing strategies imaginable. But that was not the case at all. New Coke was a catastrophic misjudgment by Coke. They really had thought people would prefer New Coke. In fact, even after they reintroduced the classic version, they kept New Coke available in shops as well, because he thought once people actually had more time to try the new flavor, eventually people would convert to the new formula. But they were wrong again. Sales of New Coke never improved, and eventually it was removed from circulation completely. However, despite being so completely wrong, the end result was that New Coke had unintentionally made people realize how much they loved original Coke. The whole thing helped people feel more attached and loyal to Coke than ever before, by taking the classic taste of Coke away. It showed people how much they missed it when it was gone. It was a reminder how important to them Coca-Cola was, and so, even though temporarily removing Classic Coke created a huge backlash against the company. As soon as they brought it back, Coke sales increased, and people felt really grateful to the company, and thus New Coke was one of the most successful mistakes ever. That's it. If you like this type of content, check out my other videos, and if you like it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. If you have any further questions, please leave them in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed this story of New Coke, and if you want more business story, check out these videos next that I think you'll really like. Thanks for watching to the end. You are a legend, and I'll see you in the next video.